You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I'm shocked I didn't notice this, but when President Barack Obama was in office, apparently he suffered a pretty bad mouth and lip injury. From what we understand, Michelle Obama was on her brother's podcast, and she had been speaking about how he was playing basketball, and he busted his lip, and he needed approximately 30 stitches in his mouth. And now I'm looking at the pictures now being reported by Daily Mail, and I'm like, I can't believe I missed that. But then again, I really don't look that closely, and I'm sure they didn't allow the cameras to be that close. But boy, that is a pretty bad boo-boo, especially if it involves the mouth. And I brought this up because I can't tell you how many patients will call up having issues 5 days, a week, 2 weeks down the line because they didn't go in and get stitches. They cut themselves. They just dealt with it on their own. And now they're having issues with their injury. So I thought we should talk about when to get stitches and when not to. So to just quickly review what happened with Barack Obama, the commander-in-chief at the time was playing basketball. And I think he was playing basketball with Ray DeSarega, an official with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. And who apparently this gentleman accidentally hit Obama in the mouth. Now you would think, there would be, some sort of process for what happens if you cause the president to bleed. But, I'm sure obviously it was all in sport. He even said that Obama's a tough competitor and a good sport. But I wonder what happens if you actually hurt the president playing a game. So anyway, he had a pretty bad injury. He was supposed to have a major speech. I think he was in Washington at the time, and it was supposed to be at the bipartisan congressional leadership meeting in the Eisenhower Executive Office. So Michelle Obama was joking. This was kind of like an I told you so moment. She said he had some major speech on Monday, and I was like, this is what I'm saying, You're playing like you're 10, and now your lip is split. So he got local anesthetic, he got sutures, and then you could see that he was pretty badly injured from that. So I've had many patients who will cut their mouths or cut their lips and not go in. And they'll say, because we don't do stitches or sutures for that. I'm like, what are you talking about? They go, if I cut my mouth, the doctor will say I don't need stitches. I go, it depends. If it affects the vermilion border, which is the line that we use lip liner on. I don't wear lip liner. I should. I know. But that line that surrounds the mouth, if there's a cut that involves the vermilion border, yeah, we're going to need not only to do stitches, but probably a cosmetic surgery consult because the scarring could be badly. If it is a deep gaping wound where it won't heal or bacteria, because remember, your mouth is not sterile. We can clean your mouth out as much as we can, but if it is a deep gash, and why do we gash the inside of our mouth? Because of our teeth. So if there's a blow to our mouth and it hits on the teeth, and the teeth can be pretty jagged, then you could get a serrated sort of laceration that's not a simple clean one. And then food could get in there, and then once the skin closes, now you start getting swelling or this a pocket or cave where things can fester. So any sort of injury, even if the doctor decides I don't need to sew this, you still go in and get it cleaned out and get it cleaned up. Some lacerations, little tiny ones in the mouth, do not need to be sewn up. But if they are bigger, yes, we might have to. And I've had to sew up. If it was big and deep and it was fleshy, I put some dissolvable stitches in there to close it up. If you are bit by an animal, we are reluctant to sew those up because they are so at risk of infection that if you sew it up, it might withhold something that needs to be able to drain. However, if you get bit by an animal, we want to see it. We want to clean it up in the medical field. If it is a severe cut or we think there is going to be something cosmetic, we might actually suture. So let us decide. People will cut their hands and their fingers, etc., and they'll say, oh, you know what? That's okay. Throw some dirt on it. Do not throw dirt on it. And do not go and use super glue. Do not go and use chemicals that are non-sterile that next to anything bleeding. We do not recommend you do that at home. But why do we suture to begin with? Well, if we think the wound, so your skin is the biggest organ of your body, and your skin has multiple jobs. One is to, keep your moisture in. If you don't have skin, you dry out and dehydrate. It's a barrier. Two, to allow symbiotic bacteria to grow and keep out other pathogens. And, to prevent bleeding and things from coming in. So you need that barrier. You need that skin closed. If it stays open and it doesn't heal, it just remains open and it festers and the skin can't heal well. And so there are many wounds that do need to be closed. And I know people say, well, is it a 1/4 inch? Is it a 1/2 inch? It depends on the wound. If you have a wound that's on a joint, you're going to use that joint. It's going to keep splitting open. So we're going to be more inclined to suture that one. Superficial wounds that only involve the epidermis, we're probably not going to suture. But if it involves deeper layers, yes, because we don't want things to get in there. We don't want things to fester. We want it to heal. And what do? Well, we approximate the edges, and then we put the sutures in. We don't call them stitches. We call them sutures to try to align it as much as possible, keep it closed, and allow it to heal. There's been some controversy using Neosporin and triple antibiotic ointment. Some feel that ointment will kind of spread out and push away the tissues. Others think it's great in terms of fighting off infection, but we need to clean that wound first. So anytime you get cut, you need to get yourself checked out. I'll have patients call up with toenail avulsions where their toenail will bleed. They busted their toe or they caught their toenail on something and it ripped, or if that toenail has separated, you got to get that checked out. It will not heal well on its own. It will get infected, it will fester, and the new nail may not grow. So rule of thumb is if it isn't a scratch or scrape, and even with some of those, actually, make sure somebody, evaluates it before you decide to blow it off, because these things can, turn into something more serious. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So we haven't talked much about hospital closures, not because they haven't been happening, but because there's been so much other news. But if you look deep, there's some headlines, and these are not good headlines. So making news today are 2 Pennsylvania hospitals are closing. Crozer Chester Medical Center and Taylor Hospital are going to be shutting after parent company Prospect Medical Holdings filed for bankruptcy in January. This healthcare giant has been trying to, find a potential buyer, but they have not been able to find a buyer. A lot of people don't want to buy hospitals, especially with Obamacare and the way reimbursements are and costs of staff. And so it's not very lucrative for a lot of investors. Hence, if you're a company that's losing money, and boy, do these hospitals hemorrhage, you're in trouble. So employees received emails yesterday letting them know that the hospitals are going to close. There's going to be about 2,600 people laid off. Prospect tried to figure out how to bring in cash, and they don't see any end in sight. Now, Prospect operated 16 hospitals and more than 165 clinics across Pennsylvania, California, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Now, I'm not exactly sure about the other hospitals. According to Daily Mail, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro blamed Prospect's greed and mismanagement for the closures, saying that's going to hurt workers and patients. Now, the 2 hospitals are going to divert emergency room patients to other medical centers in the area, but big cities are already very poorly equipped with hospital beds. To lose 2 big hospitals, not good. So they're going to stop the elective inpatient admissions, trauma, surgical, OB-GYN, other things. Complex needs are going to immediately be moved to other facilities. And this is just, it's heartbreaking. Delaware County Memorial Hospital apparently has already been closed. Springfield Hospital in 2022. And when you look at what's been happening across the country, we are being told that 768 rural hospitals in the U.S. right now are at risk of closing. And that's the rural hospitals. We're not even talking about a state as populous as Pennsylvania. So according to a new report by Healthcare Finance Policy Organization for the Center of Healthcare Quality and Payment Reform and being reported by Healthcare Brew, they say ongoing financial challenges like reimbursement rates for services is the problem. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Mississippi were identified as the states with the most at-risk hospitals. The math isn't paying, it's just not adding up, and hospitals are not getting paid what they need. They say there may be fewer emergency department visits due to there being fewer patients living in the area, but the cost to staff the ED remains the same because you have to have staff, you have to still pay rent, you have to pay malpractice, you have to pay for the electronic software. You still have to pay for everybody, whether patients are coming in or not. And if patients aren't paying and you're taking care of them up front without payment, there's only so long you can last. They say 65% of rural areas lack primary care access. The Center for Healthcare Quality and Payment Reform said private health plans do not pay enough to keep the hospitals financially stable. They say although the at-risk hospitals are losing money on uninsured patients and Medicaid patients, they're also losing on private insurance. And in fact, they say those are the biggest causes of overall losses. Rural hospitals reportedly have less than half the median profit margin of urban hospitals, according to a 2017 study from Johns Hopkins. Last month, Jackson Hospital, Montgomery, Alabama, filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Most of these hospitals require grants and government infusion. Look at what happened with Denver Health, needing money infused. They said one of the issues were migrants and them not being able to pay and them needing to take care of people who weren't paying. The problem is government funding that's not guaranteed. They say since 2005, 195 rural hospitals have closed. More than 1,000 have cut inpatient services. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I think years ago, a hospital in, I'm trying to think. There was a local city that had to stop their OB services. And, and they just didn't have the funding and they didn't have the staff. And, I really fear where we're going with this because we just don't have, the infrastructure nor the laws that really, I guess, allow us to overcome these financial restraints. And Obamacare really messed us up. They really, really messed us up. I'm sorry, when the deductibles rose, patients can't pay. I told you what's happening now that Biden's had cut off medical debt, saying, you know what, medical debt, we're going to allow that to be exempt from your credit report so you won't get fined, or it won't, if you owe, that won't affect your credit. Well, then people aren't paying. Now, mind you, listen, medical debt is not easy. I don't want to see people in financial ruin because they had to have a hysterectomy or they had to have a surgery or they had to have cancer treatment. But then where's the money going to come from? I think it was Mesquite, Nevada, that might have had to close down. I don't know if Mesquite can offer. Let me just see if Mesquite can offer OB services. I'll have to double check that, but I think years ago the hospital couldn't continue to do OB, deliver babies. Well, if you're in labor, then that means you got to go, 30 to 45 minutes east to St. George or 45 minutes west to Las Vegas. That's not convenient. And many people in these rural towns are stuck driving hours to get to a medical facility. So how do we fix it? We could complain as the day is long. How do we fix this situation? When people go, I don't understand, Dr. Daliah, doctors are golfing, they're driving fancy cars. How are reimbursements poor? Well, all I can tell you is when I ran my office, I didn't get to negotiate with the insurance companies like some big companies can. So when Medicare decided to pay me 12 cents for a flu shot and say I had to take a loss, I had to take it. When Medicare said we're not paying for the urinalysis, if you're running a urine test, we're not paying it. We'll pay for the visit, $22, $32, but that's it. That's all I could do. Now, what a lot of companies have done is with electronic software, they've upped their note. So rather than billing a level 3, they'll bill a level 4, which will get them an extra $10 or $20 per note per visit. But I mean, that's still not enough to pay the bills. I met an ENT who says he only made $200 per tonsillectomy. So to leave the office and shut down the office so he could go and perform a tonsillectomy to only get $200, it just wasn't worth it. So now many medical providers don't bill themselves. They're like, you need to hire me and you need to get me a good salary or I'm out. So now these companies, in order to keep these doctors, they have to pay them $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. Or they lose their medical providers. And if you think AI is not coming to displace them, to make healthcare cheaper, you got another thing coming. These hospitals cannot afford the staff. Nurses making 6 figures. And they deserve the 6 figures. Trust me, these nurses bust their butts. But you could only do so much if you're making $20 a visit. There's an insurance company in town that pays paid $2.42 for a visit, for a level 3 visit. And a level 3 visit is coming in, checking your blood pressure, talking to you, examining you. And they said they only had to pay that because the patient had a $30 or $35 copay. Well, if the patient's not paying their copay, that doctor's only making $2.42. And you wonder why I eventually closed down. It wasn't that I didn't have business knowledge. If I had business knowledge, I wouldn't have opened up a medical practice to begin with. All right. It's because I want to help people. And I was like, you know what? We'll make it work. And we did make it work. but it wasn't lucrative. And then once Obamacare came in and the deductibles were $10,000 and patients are like, you know what, bill the $30 to me, I'll pay you when I can. The money just didn't come in. So I could just imagine what the local hospitals are dealing with. Just if you thought that your local hospital has a bed with your name on it, you got another thing coming. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So after my trip to Colorado Springs, one of my listeners said that they need an inexpensive place to travel to. They want to do a summer vacation, but they don't have money. He's out of work. But the family really needs a vacation. And so can't afford Disneyland, can't afford Disney World. What recommendations do I have? And yes, I do love to save money, and I'm not a travel expert, but I know how important travel is, and vacation time is needed. You know, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada, and it was hot. My parents didn't have money, but you know, if we could get away for a weekend, it made a big difference for the long summer, which is why, again, we really shouldn't have kids out of school the whole summer. They get bored, they play too many video games or watch TV, and they could be learning. They could be, you know, doing something productive. We really need to fix that. And I'm sorry, teachers, I love you guys to death. I think we could maybe expand Christmas break, maybe expand a little bit of the breaks in the spring, but a big lump of 3 months where the kids are just sitting around bored doing nothing. No, it's a waste. And now there's all this pressure on families. Oh, we got to take a vacation. We got to do something to keep them busy. And if you only have enough money to scrape together for a weekend trip, you know, it helps, but it doesn't solve a lot. So, I mean, I think in the long term, that's going to be something that has to get fixed. But in the short term, you know, a big mistake I think we make is we see where other people vacation. And we're like, okay, well, I have to go to Disneyland, or I got to go to Hawaii. I would not go to Disneyland in the summer. I love Disneyland. It's just too gosh darn hot. And to stand in lines, and it's just so overpriced. I'm sorry. I love going to Disneyland, but it's just too damn expensive and it's too busy. And so I think there's a lot of other things you could do that are pretty cool. Now, the one thing I learned, whether it's so I live in the West Coast, so getting to the East Coast or going to Europe, once you're there, there's a way to really do things inexpensively. The problem is getting there. So I have a wedding to go to in Boston in May. And I love this family, and I'm really excited I get invited to the wedding. But I have always wanted to see Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. I've been to Boston. I love Boston. Any opportunity to go to Boston, I want to jump on it. Well, it's flipping expensive. It's expensive to get to Boston. But once I'm there, you know, I found a hotel in Portland for $99. And I think it includes breakfast. So that's way cheaper than the hotels in my area. I live in Las Vegas. These hotels are like $250 a night. And so once you get there, that it's not as expensive. And if you all share a room, right, that saves money. If you go with families, you could rent a house, and that could really limit costs. You could rent a van, and that'll also limit costs. So get bikes, do a bike trip, so you just have to get there. If you can get there using miles, see, I like using a credit card that gives you miles or points like Capital One so that I could use those later. I use Discover card, but the problem with Discover is the cash back is still so little that I think you get more bang for your buck with miles and points. So investigate that, learn about that. That helps. But let's say you don't have the money to fly or the time to fly, or you're worried about these planes lighting on fire, which I completely understand. I really love camping and doing outdoor type stuff. Now, I'm very fortunate to live in Southern Nevada, where a few hours here, a few hours there, driving time, I could get to some cool places. One really cool place was Page, Arizona, where I was able to hike in that canyon, that Antelope Canyon. I don't know if you've seen my Facebook or my Twitter, some of those pictures of the rock formations. I think Peter Lick, one of his famous pictures is of that rock formation. Really gorgeous, not that expensive to go. And it's from where I'm at, it's drivable. I live in an area where there are so many different campsites and places you could go. Another thing you could do is rent a trailer or rent an RV. And that could save you money. You go with a few families. This way, at least you have the RV so you all can drive there. Yeah, but you all have your camping equipment. There's a bathroom, there's a shower, and then you guys can set up your camping. You're if you don't want to drive there yourselves. And you need to do a little bit of glamping. But those trips where the kids can play, fish, do a campfire, great. And honestly, those memories, everybody's like, oh, well, I got to take my kids to Disneyland. I got to have the kids have to have these memories. I got to tell you, my kids remember the fishing trips and they remember the camping trips more than that. And they like that. And I still do that. And it gets you out of the heat. It gives you a lot of exercise. And I love being able to bring the dog. I used to bring my cats with me also until the older one. I have a cat that's turning 19 this year. So he's like, oh, hell no. And I'm like, okay, fine. But I used to take the cats and the dog so I could take the pets. And I got to tell you, those were inexpensive. Now, when my husband decides to go and buy food, he overbuys and then, so yeah, we do kind of spend a lot on food. But it's great. You don't have to eat out. You cook. The kids cook, you make the kids work, and this is when the kids want to work because they want to build the campsite. And so I think there's a lot of different things you could do. And then I think day trips are important. But what I would recommend is if you're looking at this long summer ahead going, oh, God, what are we going to do and what are we going to afford? Look at things you could do that are pretty close by, that are a little bit off the beaten path, that allow you to have that break. And another thing that I would do sometimes with my family, and this is when Las Vegas hotel rooms were pretty reasonable, and hopefully there's still deals you could get, but I would sometimes do a staycation. And so if I didn't have time to take off, and I only had a day or two off, then we would do a staycation where we would get the room, let the kids play at the pool, rent a movie. And it felt like a vacation, and it wasn't that much money. And we didn't have to pay that much on gas. So, there's a lot of little things you could do because the purpose of a vacation, it might be to see a whole new world, but, I can't go to Japan. I can't go to Australia. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. But I need a break. I need to, even though I'm a workaholic and a lot of times I still work on these trips, getting outside scenery, getting out of the heat, getting some nature, exercising. So Colorado Springs, my son was supposed to have a work trip. It got canceled by Doge, which is totally understandable. Doge needs to save money. But, I wanted to still go to Colorado and he still wanted to go. So I go, well, then why don't you and I go for the weekend? And boy, did we hit as many sites as we could have. And a lot of that didn't really cost money. And we were able to, hike and, explore nature. And so if there's a place you really want to see, there's a way to make it happen, whether it's a road trip, whether it's getting companion fares on Southwest, whether it's racking up points and miles, coupons. But, you can make things happen. And the biggest thing that has always shocked me is once you get there. Another thing also is you don't necessarily have to go directly to your destination. So I told my husband I want to see Maine. He goes, well, find a flight out of Portland. And it was so much more expensive to fly into Maine. And I'm like, wait a second, how far away is Boston from Portland? It's about an hour and a half. Well, I'm like, well, then why don't we just fly in and out of Boston? It's cheaper, and then we'll just drive back. So, we talked about this with Paris. And during the Olympics, a lot of people had Paris, regret or Paris envy because they never got to see Paris. And going to Paris is expensive. But what if you fly into England? There's direct flights to England, and then you take the Eurostar, which goes under the canal. Sometimes that's a cheaper way to get to Paris. So sometimes, depending on where you want to go, if you go in a roundabout way, it's sometimes cheaper. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back at the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So George Clooney has made some headlines, not only because of what happened with Biden, but because he has revealed that he and his wife, Amal, have not had one argument in their 10-plus years of marriage. Now, I'm really happy for them, but I'm sure the average woman is sitting there going, wait a second here. I got to have a husband that looks like George Clooney who won't fight with me. This is kind of nice. Let's really, though, dissect that. I'm happy for them, but listen, if I had a home on Lake Como, I probably wouldn't be, bickering much either. So he said, Amal and I, this is when he was speaking to Gayle King on CBS Mornings, April 21st. He said, Amal and I, we were here with you once before, and remember we said we'd never had an argument, and we still haven't. We're still trying to find something to fight about. Now, they got married in 2014, I believe. They have 2 kids, 2 fraternal twins. And I'm happy for them, but from what I've heard, they're so busy. You know, he's either always filming or whatever, that they live separately for a good part of it. So when they do see each other, I mean, they're probably having, more positive interactions. And what I don't like about what happens with celebrities is how people look at what happened with celebrities and then they extrapolate that to their life and they go, okay, well, then I have a problem with my marriage. George Clooney is very, very wealthy, okay? And his wife is very, very wealthy. And I tell you, it would be my dream to have a home in Lake Como. He's got great taste, by the way. They have great taste. Lake Como is exquisite. I've been there and I can't wait to go back. Wow. Just amazing. And, they have jobs. He's on commercials. I don't think they have to fight about money. Most of us couples have issues with money. If they have a solid relationship and nobody's cheating, then they're probably not fighting about that. And if the kids are being brought up the way they want them to be with nannies or however, it is possible. He's not lying. It is possible to go through a marriage without fighting and arguing. But, keep in mind, these guys have a different life than us, right? Than regular folk. Okay? I mean, Corey and I will argue about things all the time, and it's good for us. I mean, if all I said was yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, that's fine. Or he's like, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. That doesn't help the marriage at all. Okay, I need to know what he's thinking. I want to make sure he's happy. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing and vice versa. But, we keep hearing about how celebrities are doing things, and then we think there's something wrong with our life. And I hear couples keep fighting, and couples, are strained. And I'm middle-aged, so I'm at the age now where there's a lot of, friends and people I know that are, kids have moved out. There's a lot of divorces that happen once the kids have moved out. And the kids, don't necessarily, there's not going to be the issue with child support. Now people, go through their either midlife crisis or reboot and go, well, okay, now I want to be with somebody, younger. I want to be with somebody new. I want to have fun. We fell out of love. Let's move on. And so I worry because I think a lot of people have broken up for the wrong reasons. They think they'll have a George Clooney, a Mal Clooney relationship, or they'll, get to date and have all this fun. And then they come to find out it's not fun to be single. It's horrible to be single. I don't ever want to be single again. No way. The J-Lo Ben Affleck issues that were seen was very, I don't want to say hyped up. I think a lot of people found that very interesting because they looked like they were bickering a lot. They looked like a regular couple. It just, they didn't make it. And it was twice that they got together and broke up. And when people thought they had a whirlwind wedding where all of a sudden they're getting married again, people predicted that's not going to last. They're like, you see, I was right. I don't wish that on anybody. I don't want to see anybody break up. But, you wonder, why we keep looking at these other couples and then trying to compare our lives to them when these people are rich, they're in Hollywood, they have different pressures, they're Botoxed, they're Ozempicing all the time. It's not practical. But what is practical is to have fights, to have arguments. That is practical. And I apologize, someone's calling. And we don't have conversations about that. Right now, the conversation is how George Clooney and Amal never have a fight. So they're going to probably live happily ever after in Lake Como. And I understand they have other homes. And I'm happy for them. But that's not real life. Why aren't we talking about the regular fights, the regular issues? Barack Obama, and Michelle Obama have, been a little bit more open about the relationship. People have been accusing them they might be getting a divorce. I welcome their candor, and they should have all the privacy in the world that they want. But if they are going to be honest and talk about that, that's pretty cool because, knowing that a presidential family is having similar issues with relationships, I'm sure Melania and Trump have issues. That's how marriages work. And you can have everything at your fingertips, and it doesn't mean your relationship is going to be absolutely perfect. But for those of us that don't have everything at our fingertips, and money is the number one thing couples fight about, is money. Well, yeah, if you're rich and you don't have to stress about money, then yeah, that's going to limit a lot of the fights. But I think if you do fight, that means you care. When you stop talking to each other, or I don't care, whatever you want. When you start to disassociate or to divest, that's a sign that the relationship is not going to last. You know, we always look at red flags on if a marriage is falling apart. And it's when you just feel like you're with a roommate. You're just kind of going through the motions. And you're doing what you need to, and you're not fighting about anything because you're not engaged. You're not connected on things. You're kind of figured out how to live separate lives. Now, some people like that. They're like, now we don't fight. She has her spending limit. I have mine. We separated the finances. Listen, if you figured out a way to not fight with your spouse and you still love each other and you're able to make that partnership work, I think that's perfect. That's great. But if what you did was just you led different lives, you're sleeping with other people, then that's not a marriage. So if you are fighting and arguing about things, that could be a very healthy sign to a relationship. But if you're fighting to the point where you feel scared of each other, or there's abuse, or you feel like you're always walking on eggshells, no, that is an issue. You shouldn't be always fighting. You shouldn't be always bickering. You know, I'm watching Landman. And it's cute, not my favorite show, but it's not bad, and you see, the couple always kind of fighting and yelling at each other, and, they're acting like that's all cute and that's all normal and that's just how the relationship is. I think, stop looking at TV, stop looking at your friends. If you have questions about how your marriage is going, talk to a counselor. Counselors see couples of all types. And I can't tell you how many times couples came in, and I'm not a counselor, I'm a family medicine doctor, but patients would come into me saying, you know what, he'd rather masturbate than have sex with me. And, once I explained, some people have trouble in the bedroom, and some people prefer to do self sessions. And sometimes, you should still try and be intimate and be together, but, that doesn't mean the marriage is over. And a lot of people don't understand that they don't know because they have a different barometer. And I'm not saying that's normal too, but work through what are your concerns. And oftentimes you come to find out that your marriage might be stronger than the average marriage that falls apart. But everybody has doubts, but it's because we don't know. And, you can read a book here, read a book there, but maybe get some counseling and find out. But for the love of God, don't compare your relationship to George Clooney's. Because if you don't have a home in Lake Como, it's not going to be identical. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. And nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.